Calling the regular board meeting to order. Our Diana, who is actually gave, will you do the roll call?
Yes, I will. Marsha White.
Here.
Nicole Harris.
Here.
Andrea Usry. Andy Luther.
Here.
Stephen Lindsay.
Here.
Ann Fusen. And Kelly Ropers.
Here.
Thank you.
Board, please make sure you talk into your mics tonight.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, justice for all.
Turning the meeting over to Dr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Ms. White. I'm going to call up our building principals and Ms. Griffiths to present our school improvement plans for this year.
Good evening. So today the principals will be presenting their school improvement plans for the 23-24 school year. Our school improvement plans are part of our district strategic plan, using a system of continuous improvement to improve academic performance and social emotional learning for all students. They will be going over the schools and the district data, review action steps, and then we will review what to expect with spring data and the next steps. Every year we meet as a para committee, which we met at the end of the school year last year, and we came up with a new goal for this year. We will be using only iReady fall to winter data this year. And our goal is that 48% of our students will hit their growth target for iReady, ELA, and math. And it will be measured by making 50% or more toward their typical growth goal. So what that means is that they get a typical growth goal for the year. At winter, we expect them to be at 50% of that goal. And we would like at least 48% of our students to hit that goal. So now each building is going to go over what their plans are for the year and how we're going to achieve those goals.
So it's not listed directly on here, but our goal for the school improvement plan reflects directly the goal that was written for the district plan. And that's just for the purposes of alignment. It makes it easier to track and keeps us in alignment with the vision and the mission of the school. Everything listed here are the specific tactics that we're using to fulfill those goals. Some of the most important, I would argue, the most important has been the implementation of a strong MTSS or RTI system that stands for multi-tiered systems of supports or response to intervention. We have used local norm data, which I'll get into when we talk about how we've performed at the end of the year. We use local norm data to determine which students to target. The reason we did that is because a large percentage of our students hit the 25th percentile and below when looking at national norms. So to allow our teachers to strategize more efficiently, I went through the local norming process to identify the specific students they will be targeting this year, utilizing, this trimester, utilizing this method. We have reached around 220 students this year in Tier 2 Response to Intervention or MTSS. And that includes both in the classroom interventions that do happen when you're speaking about Tier 2 and out of the classroom interventions that are occurring during advisory, which is our first 30 minutes. That was the revision to the master schedule that we made for this school year. In addition to that, we're attending our PLCs, and then in alignment with the district initiative, we are following the Kagan 5 essential strategies or structures to utilize in every classroom. And this expectation will be articulated to staff in a memo based on the observations I make in the coming weeks of their current implementation.
Yeah. Hi. Okay, so same thing like, I gotta change it for you. There you go. So working on our goal that para committee came up with, how is focusing on the teacher capacity and the knowledge of PLCs. So that is an area that some teachers need some support in. So now we're following a format in all of our meetings. They're taking notes on an agenda that is uniform within our building. We talk about kids, we talk about our common assessments, and we go through all of that and we answer our 4 PLC essential questions. We're also working on implementing the building-wide RTI Tier 2. Last year, with the amount of students that were identified, we were only able to hit about 10% of those students in RTI because the groups would have been 8 kids at a time. This year, we are now targeting 15% and below. So each year we are improving, and we are looking at utilizing our grant for some Spanish intervention kits, PD for staff, and much more support for the students academically in order to make their goals. And then one other thing that we are working on this year is at each trimester, instead of the RTI team just making their groups for that Tier 2 intervention on their own, we are meeting as an RTI EL principal, specialist, as well as each grade level team. So the teachers are able to then come in, and there's a lot to tease out, like, do they need some EL support? Do they need this intervention? Do they need a more intensive one with maybe a special education teacher? So it just gives more perspective when we're picking and choosing which kids can make that small group.
Thank you. So like the other buildings, we're also focusing on our PLC work extensively at Kenneth Murphy this year. We are providing instructional coaches as well as our tiered intervention team to help lead PLCs within our building. I gave them a 3-day training kind of in-house at the beginning of the school year to help them guide and implement our PLCs throughout the building. We are also focusing on giving PLC training throughout the school year to continue our growth and development, especially as we are looking at our SMART goals for the year. We are also focusing on our data this year, and that also factors in with our PLC work. Every day we're diving deep into the data for ELA, math scores, looking at which students need our tiered intervention and getting them placed in those groups. We are also, sorry, I'm very nervous right now. We are also focusing on our Kagan strategies this school year. That's something that is kind of a district-driven initiative, but it is going tremendously well so far. We have a lot of staff who are embracing the strategies and structures right away, even within 2 weeks after having their formal training. So we're working really hard and moving along.
So for Newport, one of the things I wanted to focus on regarding PLCs was feedback that I got from the staff at the end of the year, what they wanted to see more structure and support. So I implemented a PDSA, plan, do, study, act cycle. And what that entails is it allows them to look at the data and see where their students are at, come up with a plan, implement different strategies within the classroom, come back and see how they are doing within that cycle in order to provide more strategic instruction for students that are in need or need an extension. Teachers have been provided ongoing support and training throughout the course of the past several months and will continue to do so by myself, through the instructional coaches, and actually teacher leaders in the building that are actually finding success with that. During the course of the school year, we will continue to be providing training and support by the district instructional coaches and myself in various ways to improve instructional practices based on research-based strategies, which includes Kagan that we just went through training. I've seen some really great strategies from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade that have been happening over the past few weeks. and we will continue working on that. As far as our tiered instruction goes, with the first implementation of our math interventionist, we've seen some great success. We're able to meet students in tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 3 students are seen 3 days a week. Tier 2 students are seen 2 days a week. That allows us to give us some flexibility for students who need more intensive support after their 6 and 8 week rotations, and we're seeing them for 40 minutes a day.
Well, there we go, thank you. Just building off of what we've been doing, I think, with Oak Crest, this is year 4, so we're, going into the past of what we've already done and just improving it each year. One of the first things that we did at Oak Crest was improve our instructional strategies. Each teacher received a book called The Art and Science of Teaching, and teachers were given PD and implementing Marzano strategies. I think it's great now that we've had Kagan training, because this just makes their toolbox a little bit wider and making sure that they're putting strategies into their lessons. So, they're pretty familiar with the framework, and now the expectation is that they should have a Marzano or a Kagan strategy tied to each of their lessons. They also understand that Hattie's research shows that teachers have the biggest effect size on students. So they understand that putting these strategies into action is extremely important. Another thing that we've been doing at Oak Crest is really looking at the subgroups of students that are not making the expected growth that we would anticipate. So we've looked at special ed, because we're a big special ed building, but we started to think about how are our ELs performing at the school. So we started to dive into that data and actually found that they're keeping up with the general education population, that there are a few areas that we would like to focus on. So with that, we are going to start looking at the language objectives and tie those to the I can statements in the classroom. PD is going to be given to teachers just because they've received it before from Lizette, but I think they need a little booster shot of remembering Bix and Kelp and different ways that ELs learn. They also need to start putting more visuals into the classroom. We're continuing with our WIN interventions. We have 10 teachers currently in grades K through 2 who are doing WIN. We have now 3 enrichment categories, and looking at the iReady data, I feel very confident that our teachers will meet the 43% threshold in reading and in math, because some of those students are already there. So we started to really look at, providing enrichment opportunities, looking at the Okapi books, and really focusing on not the phoneme awareness that typically takes place in grades K through 2, but looking at really diving into comprehension and asking some of those more challenging comprehension questions to students. And lastly, critical vocabulary was an area that we saw that we needed some support in. It's great that when these kids take the iReady and IAR tests, but a lot of times they come across vocabulary that is unfamiliar to them. So it's not that they can't answer the question, they just don't understand what the question is asking. So teachers all received a sheet in the beginning of the year outlining some of the critical vocabulary words that show up on these exams, and they're going to be using the Kagan and Marzano strategies so that students master those vocabulary words.
Boards, one of our goals was to ensure that we implement high engagement strategies into the frameworks. So that is why Tracy and the coaches got Kagan strategies here for our Institute Day in September, was so that staff could start utilizing the structures of Kagan as well as start using more high engagement strategies alongside our frameworks, just for a frame of reference for what they're talking about and why we did it that way. Carry on.
Do you want to practice one? Just kidding.
We can.
No, we're good. They are wonderful, though, and it has been really refreshing to hear staff's feedback about it, because it's been universally positive, so that's a good thing. The next goal that we're going to discuss is our learning conditions goal. This goal is focused specifically on behavior at Beach Park Middle School. While technically we didn't meet the goal that we wrote last year because of the way that it was written, I would say that we far surpassed all of our expectations, with overall a 30% drop in physical altercations, from the last school year to this school year, and the lowest recorded number for a full year's data since it started to be housed in Power School. So I think that's a huge positive. This year, our goal is set for us to reach an additional 5% reduction at minimum. My mental goal is much higher than that, just so that you know it, but small attainable goals is the way that we're told to do things. So that's how we're rolling, so we can celebrate those successes. And then this year, based on the consistency that we're providing, we will be able to provide a year-over-year comparison from trimester to trimester to see if there are areas where we need to be targeting our support the most. Most educators would tell you that November and December are big months. They typically are. They're very dysregulating months for students. I'm sure all of you would nod if I asked you if the holidays were hard for you. It's hard for kids too. So the difference is that they don't quite know how to manage those feelings that they have. What they would tell you is that I have 3 slogans that I use at the middle school. Every day, every student received a t-shirt with these on them. Learning is not optional, love is limits, and consistency is key. So if I were to argue the basis on how we do our work, it is really housed around that. The best way to ensure that we are being equitable in our practices is by applying a systemic approach to behavior intervention, because behavior is a little bit more nuanced than education is specifically. So when it comes to behavior management, there's a lot of bias that comes into play based on a multitude of different things that I could talk about a long time, so I won't do that. So a couple of things that we've done. Number one, with huge positive feedback, administrative offices, with the exception of mine, have been moved to the wings where the staff supervise. So the board has provided us with a dean of students and 2 assistant principals. The dean of students is the direct supervisor for 6th grade behaviors, because their behaviors tend to be a little bit more petty. So the technical administrator over 6th grade would be me, so that I can sign all the papers. 7th grade, we have an assistant principal, Mr. Anderson, is over 7th grade, and 8th grade, Ms. Graybo, is over 8th grade. And their offices have been moved out of the main office into the hallways of the students that they serve. That has had an astronomically positive impact on the hallways and on teachers' perceptions on how we're operating. So we're there within seconds now, instead of if you've walked from my office down to 6th grade, you know how long that can take, even if you're trying to move fast. In addition to that, we have our supervision schedule. We are also using what's called the assessment of lagging skills of unsolved problems. We have a brief version and an extended version that comes from Dr. Ross Green's work, Lost at School. Used on its own, it is a biased tool, but used in a system, it can be done equitably. We use those tools to make determinations on the support students need, and now have a full response to intervention, or MTSS, system in place for how we're addressing student behaviors. School improvement days continue to be utilized as social emotional learning days for all grade levels. Tomorrow, families will receive an email. During that time, when I meet with kids, I give them incentives to keep them moving towards the goals that we have for each other. So for instance, any grade level that has below 3 total physical altercations for October, November, and December will get a pizza party in January. So that will be shared with families. One of our major goals is to continue establishing a safe learning environment for students. To that end, we have installed a restorative circles classroom in our building. So we have a restorative space where students can request to do a peer mediation. So from a cultural perspective, telling kids snitches get stitches is don't believe that, don't do that. Like, I'm not going to win anybody that way, because there are reasons why kids believe that, and I'm not here to argue about that, but I am here to provide you avenues of solving problems on your own. So we're training staff, and administrators and social workers have been trained to facilitate peer mediations, and what that does is take some of those hallway arguments that sometimes look away, that people who look like me don't understand, and move them to a space where they have some privacy, so they can work out their differences without their tone or their voice being policed. And just making sure that they're making safe choices through that process. All peer mediations end with a safety contract and shared agreements. So students establish their own shared agreements with adult guidance. They sign the document, and they sign with an understanding that if you breach any of these, now I get to choose the consequence. And kids are requesting it, probably at a rate of about 5 per week. So that's a huge positive. And then lastly, our grade level administrators, so that would be Mr. Rovenal, Ms. Grabo, and Mr. Anderson, attend all grade level team meetings to be a part of conversations around student behavior, which do happen weekly. There are some other things that I'm doing that are not necessarily on the school improvement plan. I've just started a principal's advisory committee of students who meet with me once per month. The students I chose were all students who had multiple office discipline referrals already this school year, and then staff were allowed to recommend students too. So I have a total of 8 students that I'll be working with and meeting with once per month. Many of those students have been added also to the strategic planning committee so that we can amplify their voices. So that's the other big thing that I'm doing that's not on there. I do that every year. It turns out that I'm like, oh, I like this idea. E-Hall Pass has also been a huge positive, so thank you for that as well. I think every administrator, including district administrators who have come through, have commented with me at one point or another about how clear the hallways are. And if you were here last year, you know we've made a lot of gains. So I'm very confident we'll continue to do so. I've got universally very positive feedback from staff that it has never, quote, never felt this way before. So I'm really proud of where we're going at the middle school in terms of climate and culture.
All right, so at How, we are focusing on our climate and culture as well. So this is year 2 for me there. So obviously first year was a lot of relationship building within the school, a lot with students, parents, just with as myself to teachers. This year, a lot of the focus for this culture and climate is with parents, more so, because one of our 5 essential surveys in the past was that 3% of our parents feel that they're partnering in education with their children. Obviously, again, like Stephanie said, my mental goal, way higher than this, but to have 20% of our parents to answer that survey. Now, again, that's not all of our parents answering that survey, so that's just a little snippet of it, but having things, working with our parent liaison and having some PBIS informational nights for our parents don't understand what our bear bucks are, what can our kids spend for the positive behaviors in this school, on top of having events like parent universities so that parents can understand some of our curriculum and how they can help their kids at home. And inviting parents in. I mean, I'll take a small win. Last year we had maybe 5 parents to attend PTO night. This last week we had over 8. So we're working on it. We are trying to get people in and incentives that way. We just had a Culver's night tonight. The turnout was great. So just working on some of those things, facilitating PD for parents. We have parents that can't access the parent portal. Just little things that the office we can do at the beginning of school to really help our parents and let them feel welcome. Of course, we're opening our doors back up now after COVID, and our parents think I'm the biggest hero ever, but really, I am allowing parents to come in and volunteer with reading groups, work with our students, anything in the classroom. They can come in and celebrate their kids. And so little things like that on top of us going into our PLCs and talking about our students and working on that format as well and building the relationships with our kids that need it and using our tier 2 interventions in order to get there.
All right. So at KM, we're doing a lot of great things through our PLC work, one of which is directly related to behavior intervention. We have started implementing what we call the mini PST, and that is to look at student behavioral issues within the classroom and what supports that the teachers can do on a day-to-day basis before they need extra help and support from administration or even the social worker. So once a week, we are meeting with each grade level team. By we, I mean myself as well as the social worker, to talk about student behavioral concerns that they are having. And we are developing mini action plans that they can implement going straight out the door. From there, it's a data housing point for us. We have our PLC agendas that are very streamlined, and within those we have formulated data collection points. So those mini PSTs for behavior, it's actually tracking our data from that point forward. So if we need further tiered intervention for them, we already have our starting point. So that's been wonderful. We continue to do enrichment and intervention based off of the intervention data that we see from our data walls as well as our iReady assessments. We're continuing to implement our socio-emotional curriculum with Calm Classroom as well as Second Step.
So in trying to prepare for this, as well as school improvement goals, as well as principal goals, one of the things that was very interesting from the 5 Essential survey is the issue of parent-teacher collaboration and parent-teacher trust at Newport. Historically, over the past 5 years, it's been very week to week. My goal is to move it to neutral. It is a very ambitious goal. I think it's one that's necessary in order to bridge the gap between staff and our school community. Our PTO is very small. We have about 3 to 5 parents that come. Teachers have been very involved in trying to help restructure that. We need to move them to a point where we are just there to help them. They are going to be the facilitators and the drive behind our PTO to help bring our school community together. So teachers are going to continue to provide ongoing support to help restructure PTO. Teacher teams are actually taking initiative and working together to rotate to attend monthly meetings. We've also have actually tried out a webcam so that people can log on virtually to attend our meetings. We had additional 3 parents log in this past month. And we're very hopeful to move forward with PTO to help bridge that gap. We also want to collaborate more with different events that take place. We held our first STEM night, and my goal was 50 families to attend. We had 56 families attend. It was very exciting for them to rotate through different activities throughout the evening. We welcomed our weekly reading partners. They're a group of seniors that come in and read with kids from kindergarten through 2nd grade for 20 to 30 minutes on Wednesday mornings. And we are also going to bring back our reading night. Our monthly staff spotlight has been very increasingly popular. In my SMORE, I've gotten increasingly more views, over 145 views, and gotten great feedback from families to highlight staff and just what's been happening at Newport, as well as now instilling been shining star calls weekly to parents just to say, hey, your kid's doing a great job. And I saw them in the hallway and they told me this great story. One of the things that I wanted to also continue to do is provide families with tips and ideas on reading and math and SEL support, things that they could do at home, and also letting them know what's happening in the classroom. That has been my my monthly spotlight just for family support. And I will continue to do that throughout the course of the year. During parent-teacher conferences, the end of November, I'm also going to have various groups come out and provide some information and support to parents during parent-teacher conferences. I know it's a lofty goal, but I am hopeful I can move from weak to neutral with a 12-point increase this year.
I'm going to keep mine really short and sweet. So the learning conditions for OCREST is really evolving around more professional development and putting that professional development into action, because without putting it to action, it's just information. So teachers are going to be building multilingual learning profiles using the WIDA scores and really putting the can-do statements into effect, as well as making sure that during walkthroughs that the Kagan strategies and the Marzano strategies can be seen, as well as making sure that teachers are using visuals in their classroom to make sure that this vocabulary, the critical vocabulary words are being taught.
Okay, thank you, principals. So our next steps, we're going to continue, obviously, to work on our action plans this year. In the winter, I will update the board with what our fall to winter scores look like for iReady. It'll probably be a little bit, we take our next iReady test right before Christmas break, so sometime after that, we'll be updating you. And then the buildings are all hopeful that our action steps will increase student growth in reading and math and impact SEL with less referrals and more restorative practices. That was a lot of information coming at you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Or does anyone have any questions that we can help answer?
With the junior high, the superintendent, when you were talking about the administration being in the hallway, what does that look like?
Support staff offices that were already there, I moved them. So there were social work offices that were already established there. I moved those to the main office and then took the assistant principals and put their offices in, like, literally in the hallways. They also all have walking desks, so they roll. They're a little loud, which is kind of annoying, but they'll take their, like, you'll often find Mr. Rovenal, especially at the end of the day, our sixth graders get pretty dysregulated by the end of the day. So he'll often just take his walking desk and roll it into the hall and kind of work at the end of the hallway in between both bathrooms. Is that what you were asking, or is there?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it was great with the idea that they're in the hallway firsthand.
Yeah.
I was wondering when they want to talk to a student privately.
They pull them into their office.
Okay.
So, yeah. So their office is a private closable door. In the case that there's multiple students, you saw I think you were in the conference room earlier. So we have addressed some, I'm not a huge fan of people from outside the building coming in for things like parent meetings, and I upset parents sometimes, and so do some of the practices that we employ to ensure a safe environment. So we keep that in the main office. So if there's a parent meeting or something like that that needs to happen, they use that conference room or my office. That's specifically what it's for. And then when they get to a point where they're having like a large number of students and they need that private conversation, I always step in. I step in every day on student behavior, take kids into my office, work a case on my own so that I lift the burden off of them. We also have an ISS supervisor, so your concern was definitely a larger concern when our assistant principals were supervising ISS, because there were only so many places you could put kids. So now when we have ISS, when a student is assigned ISS, they go to the ISS supervisor in his classroom. Any other questions for the middle school? Thank you for asking.
Any other questions, board? All right. Thank you, principals. Thank you, Ms. Griffiths. Moving on to Resolutions Committee report. Mr. Luther, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Board package, you would have received resolutions that are going to be voted on at the tri-conference meeting. And I'm going to ask for your input.
Diana put it in your packet on the table today, and if you start on page 10, that's where the resolutions start.
So starting with the number one, industrial construction, the resolution is shall support and encourage legislation that prohibits the construction of industrial facility. committee has met and reviewed these, and it is their recommendation not to adopt. Affect most members and some small. Should be under local control, and with the committee to not adopt.
Do you want to do all in favor? How do you want to do it as, is that, raise your hand if you're in favor of not adopting? You can't hear me? Oh, do you guys? Gotcha.
Rather do these one by one if we can. So the recommendation by the committee is not to adopt. All in favor of not adopting? This resolution is regard school resource officer funding, and the resolution is that the Illinois so requests that the Illinois legislation consider legislation to all schools, districts to offset the cost. He met and agreed that the SRO helps to protect adopt. Thank you. Third one is regarding bus driver regulations. The changes to the federal and state school training and testing for bus driver candidates and we agreed that the bus driver shortage is affecting most school districts and trying to help away. So the committee felt it best to adopt. Resolution is regarding the employment history review. The Illinois legislation consider using the Illinois Department of Child and Family Services. He had met and understood and agreed that the
step in the law of hiring people, we have to, our director of HR has to get a full. Whether or not they have any child abuse, child sexual misconduct, any kind of anything on their record. So going to DCFS, we might not have that. So I guarantee you that's why they're recommending you not adopt this, because they couldn't, one if something's on file, it's not.
He is recommending that they do not adopt, and I would ask to adopt. The next one. I think I am. Resolution is that the school boards advocate for additional funding to provide for regional. Thank you. That is it for things that will be voted on at Tri-Conference. And as your representative.
All right. Moving on, we have an IASB recognition. Ms. Marcia White has been recognized by the Illinois Association of School Boards for their participation in a number of professional development and leadership activities during their service as a school board member. IASB recognized school board members who show a dedication and desire to learn more about local school governance, adding to their leadership skills, knowledge of state and national educational issues, and commitment to serving in trust community and their students. Because of Ms. White's ongoing commitment to continued learning and participation in leadership activities, she has earned the designation as an IASB established board leader. Congratulations, Ms. White. Chair flew away, so don't try to sit down. I know. So the next thing on my superintendent report is about the resolution authorizing commencement of social media litigation. There are lots of school districts across the United States that are participating in litigation against social media companies for the damage that is happening within schools based on things that are posted. I am recommending to the board that we adopt, you approve us participating in the social media litigation It doesn't cost the district any extra money. Frantic is already representing this suit across the United States. And my recommendation would be for us to participate in this lawsuit because any money that comes from a win in this lawsuit will be used to help support social emotional learning for all of our students. Does anyone have any questions about the litigation lawsuit itself?
The lawsuit itself, I guess I would to us, and if there is a settlement,
I don't believe that's actually accurate. When we spoke with Adam and Frank, maybe you could help elaborate on this a little bit. This is a win-win for any school district participating in the lawsuit because you're already paying for lawyer services through our day-to-day transactions. So we're not paying any extra money to the law firm to represent us as part of this lawsuit. Correct. The only, and you are correct, Mr. Luther, if we were to win the lawsuit and money is going to be awarded, then yes, Frantic will take whatever percentage that is in winning. Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, everybody, I feel like I get too close to the microphone. Good? All right. Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about the service learning trip that myself, Miss Usry, and Ms. Brito just attended in the Dominican Republic. First and foremost, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to apply and that our school district was chosen. Lizette, myself, and Andrea went for 6 days to the Dominican Republic, and before everybody says, wow, they got to hang out at a pool and a beach, we basically worked every day from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m., and the feel-like temperature in the Dominican was 111 degrees every single day we were there. I think I sweated through every piece of clothing I brought with me within the first 2 days of work. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Usry, and Lizette, if you want to come up here and say any words about the service learning trip. Ms. Usry, why don't you expound on what we did? Speak into your mic.
It was so hot and sweaty. When I arrived home and opened my suitcase after 14 hours of travel home, I still had clothes that were wet from my sweat. So it was amazing. We arrived in the Dominican Republic. We were taken to the first location that we were working, which was the Institute of
Environmental School,
where they are working on reforesting the rainforests that have been deforested, the areas that have been deforested. They gave us a tour. They have some Haitian students. About 20% of the students are from Haiti. We went out and we had shovels and hoes and hacking dirt and digging weeds and shoveling and planting. Then wonderful lunch, all provided there. We did a lot of work. From there, we went and spent half a day in Santiago, saw some cultural things. That was amazing. From there, we stopped at Mocha, which is a tiny little town, and we went to an artist colony. That was amazing. The poverty, though, I have to say, is absolutely striking. Then we went and we visited a public school briefly. Like Denise said, it was about 112 degrees. They had one well, one option for water, and it was not working that day. School is half a day. The younger children come in the morning, the older kids come in the afternoon, and they're lucky if they get to finish 8th grade. So that was very eye-opening. Then we went and worked at a foundation, the Mariposa Foundation, which is in Cabarete, and that is, it supplements girls' education and social emotional learning, which was an amazing venture. There we also did a lot of work. I will say it was so hot the last afternoon we were there. We were scheduled for a couple more hours of work, and we were given a siesta. So most of us did doze with heads on the table, people laying in the shade. We met a lot of people. It was pretty amazing. And I think seeing what we saw, experiencing in the hotels, if you were lower than the fourth floor, you didn't have hot water. So I did not have a hot shower the whole time I was there. The water was cold constantly. Really made me at least think for my family and for my kids as students, what do I want? Instead of taking everything for granted, I'm already working on changing our values at home. Simply like eating. I don't like that. Well, tough, right? There are many people that would be so grateful to have this food. You're eating it, and they're actually going with it right now. But we take for granted, and what we take for granted are flushing toilets. One person from our trip posted, we have a news feed, how they, when they got home, just stood there and kept putting toilet paper in the toilet and flushing it. In parts of the country where we were, there is no established garbage service. So we've really kicked up at home our composting. And one of the large points of going to this is what could we bring back to our students, and what would overseas travel have to offer for our students? And what I've seen is
Definitely.
our program. So we were thinking about hopefully somehow working out with EF travels and tours and with the school district that in a couple years maybe that we can start sending maybe kids between 7th and 8th grade or 8th grade.
And just to clarify, and then I'm going to have Lizette say a few words. We, as a school district, applied to be a part of this service learning project. So we attended this with several other superintendents throughout the state of Illinois, as well as board members. And if you don't know, Lizette was born in the Dominican Republic, and that is why she was able to attend with us. So I'm going to let her say a few words.
So, first and foremost, I want to say Happy Bosses Day to the greatest boss we have. Thank you, Dr. Wilcox, for bringing me along. It was a different perspective for me. This was going back 40 years later to schooling in the Dominican Republic. And it was a very emotional trip for myself to see what little has changed, right? And to consider myself one of the lucky ones that was able to leave the island. I love my island, regardless of the things that are not so great. But what I did walk away with was an appreciation for educators in the Dominican Republic that dress up for work every single day with a smile, and they love on their children. I walked away with an appreciation for families who understand that even if their child goes to school for half a day, that's a blessing. And those children go to school for 3 hours, and there's a list of children that want to come, and they can't. I saw children who created their own manipulatives out of cardboard. I saw teachers who created their own posters because there's not enough money for them for Title III to buy them things. I was impressed with the environmental school and all the things that they do. And so I would love for us as a district to think, and I think Janae, you would be very happy, and hopefully you can join me on this, on creating some opportunities for us to do better at recycling, to do better at composting, to do better to teach our children to protect our school, to be clean, and to protect our environment. And so I won't speak because the whole time I was there and we had to reflect every single night, I was just bawling. I was crying the whole time. So I had a different perspective than everyone there. I was the only non-superintendent and non-board member in the group. So I was a little bit of an oddity. But like I told everyone there, we're going to learn together. And if I can learn something about my culture, I'm sure you all can learn something too. So thank you.
Thank you, Lizette. We are going to bring to the board potentially a proposal of what we could do moving forward as a district for opening doors to have opportunities for our students like this, where they can go globally and learn about learning in other cultures and what other cultures are like. And that is finally all that I have for my superintendent report.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. On to agenda, I think we have an addition we want to add.
To add an addition to the agenda, specific on temporary parking at the Oak Crest facility. Drivers.
Great.
That on there is item D.
Wasn't as of this morning, so since it didn't make the,
Yep.
Wait. Want to submit that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, is this not, it's not on page,
We just have to, you can go through the roll call that you used to open the meeting. We just have to approve the change in agenda item. It's an addition to the agenda. Diana doesn't know about it, so she didn't instruct you.
so we grow together.
Yep, you're just going to go through the roll call you did originally.
The motion was created by Mr. Luther, is that correct?
Seconded by Mr. Lindsay.
Mr. Lindsay. Okay, Andrea Usry.
Aye.
Mr. Lindsay, Mrs. Ropers.
Aye.
Mrs. White.
Aye.
Mrs. Fuson.
Aye.
And Mrs. Harris. Ms. Harris.
Aye.
Aye?
Sorry, I didn't hear aye.
Aye across the board. Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion passed. We approve the amended agenda. Do we have any correspondence?
Yes, there's course. Was it one question? Is this- no. Oh. Before a question, there's only one question by a visitor. Otherwise,
No, we're not there yet. This is just correspondence that the district has received, so no.
No. No.
Mr. Capozzo's learning a new job today.
Appreciate your patience, everyone. Thank you.
No problem. All right, any questions on old business?
with regards to the discipline report, can we get some additional information of what the report says, detention, suspension, in, out of school?
Ms. Meek, you want to come up to the mic? Thank you.
And it could be in next month's report too, either way.
I believe I heard you ask, because you cut out just a little bit, what behaviors are leading to the detentions, in-school suspensions, and out-of-school suspensions, correct? Is that what you asked? I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly, that's all. So there are a myriad of things, but most often, out-of-school suspensions are related to one of two behaviors, physical altercations or infractions that involve bringing illegal substances into the school. So that's what almost always accounts for out-of-school suspensions. In-school suspensions are typically issued in cases where it's not necessarily a physical altercation, but it's repeated like physical play even sometimes, because we are very firm about you cannot put your hands on each other at school, right? That's a really firm boundary we put in place. Detentions that are administratively administered are typically done so for more outward forms of defiance that you can track back to a specific trigger in the classroom. So what I mean when I say that is maybe the kid says, this is stupid, and then the teacher engages that, which we're consistently training, giving feedback on ways to avoid a power struggle in that situation. Sometimes it does result in the student having a more outward response in terms of their defiance that involves behaviors that are regardless of whether or not you could track it back and justify it, they are problematic in the school setting. So we'll issue an after-school detention from an administrator's perspective for behaviors like that. What is not reported in there would be detentions that are teacher administered. Those detentions are, my son got one last week. I can't remember what he did now because he's a sixth grader, so he's generally a turd right now. But he got one from Ms. Steffens, I think, for just being like disruptive for 30 minutes continuously. And that's a normal sixth grade behavior that also requires a consequence to help shape that behavior. So he was administered a teacher detention. My child was administered a teacher detention in that case. Do you have more questions about that, or does that clarify?
There's 29 out-of-school suspensions. Of that 29, most were fights?
So not necessarily. So I'd have to go back and look at the numbers directly, but if I recall correctly, we've had 11 physical altercations so far this year, but multiply that by 2, right? And each of those would be individualized suspensions. So typically when a fight, I've been an administrator for 10 years, and I can tell you that there have been 3 times that an altercation wasn't actually two-sided, despite what the parents of each side may say. So I can tell you that based on the last time I pulled data, which would have been for our October 4th School Improvement Day, there have been a total of 11 physical altercations. We had 1 more last week, so make that 12 times 2 would make 24 for the year so far.
To September.
Yeah, so the bulk of those altercations then, with the exception of the one that happened in October, would have been in September. So we had 11 total, so maybe 9, I think it was the actual number for September. 9 times 2 would be 18. The other 10 would be infractions that involved escalating repeated defiant behaviors. So following the progressive discipline model, maybe we started with interventions, detentions, social academic intervention groups, and we are still not complying with the expectations. We would then issue a suspension. Or it could be for cases, and I'd have to go back and look at each one of them directly. There were multiple cases where we suspended, I think, 6 or 7 kids for illegal substances in the middle school, and that could be anything as benign as a nicotine vape and as problematic as anything involving THC, which is an issue in most middle schools across the country. It's a common problem. If you look at the Lake County Youth Survey that they administer yearly to schools who elect to, I think it's somewhere around 80% of 8th graders report that they've tried some illegal substance at some point in middle school. So it's a pretty common problem. So in those cases, we do suspend the students for anywhere from 2 to 10 days, depending on the infraction and their involvement. If it is in a suspension that is 4 school days or more, then those students are offered instruction at the regional safe school in their base program.
Mr. Luther, moving forward, do you just want a breakdown of the discipline data specific to each? Okay.
Wondering what the behavior of students are today.
For sure. So from here on out, Stephanie, you and I can sit down with Mr. Seda and we can work through what that can look like.
That's no problem. I can say that I would like to, as accountable as I hold my students, who I love very dearly, I would like to say that 99, even though there have been 29 suspensions, 99% of those suspensions have been for developmentally normal behavior. So 2 things can be true. They are problematic enough that they require exclusionary discipline, and I do draw a hard enough line that it does sometimes upset people that when if you walked up to a student in my building and said, what happens if you go hands-on, they'd say, you go home, because I've said it that many times. We talk a lot about the difference between home rules and school rules. So I have 2 sons who, my husband was just texting me about how they were being jerks to each other at home, and he's playing middleman referee. I'm sure it's happened in your homes too, that they're playing and then all of a sudden someone's not playing and they get hurt. So we're that firm on it because at home my kids have 2 parents and 3 kids. There's 3 kids. That's a great ratio. In the cafeteria where our ratio is not the same, right? 6 to about 220 kids, which is still an acceptable amount of supervision, but does make any sort of physical contact deeply problematic. So Based on the suspensions I have administered and approved this year, I would argue that there has been one whose behavior was outside of typical middle school behavior, and he is receiving the appropriate services in addition to his suspension.
Thank you, Ms. Meek.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Yes. Pardon my interruption and clearly my ignorance. But on my sheet of accountability, it mentions approval of the agenda. And if I move up the agenda that's already passed, do I need to check for?
That's what we just did, Mr. Capozzo.
Oh, okay.
That's what we just did because we had to change the agenda ever so slightly.
Thought there was an additional motion.
So we're good.
Thanks.
Yep.
Get on to new business, long-range planning committee report. Mr. Luther?
Meet last month, or last week, I should say, at the Oak Crest facility with the purpose of touring the preschool production site. And it is coming along slowly, well behind schedule, but it is coming along. For things that need to be done before the weather gets, hopefully they're able to do that, of which moving some soil, and I'm going to ask Jose if he learned any. It up, along the south edge. About and we also have been discussing for the last few months the need for additional parking at Oak Crest, and the committee had suggested parking be put in the west side, northwest corner of the bus garage area. And one of the recommendations or action items for tonight is to, in Jose's report, he did give you some bids and some costs and did break that down, and we do. Also in the report, our board packet, was the information regarding the district office. Go out for bid. There were some 3 bids received. The one that is being recommended for approval, and the committee does amend that be approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our finance committee report. Ann?
Finance Committee met at 5:30 tonight. We talk about the resolution of intervention and proceedings before the State of Illinois Appeal Board. Just kind of went over the details of that and what about the bid for the district office expansion. We talked about the need for replacement of a pump and some pipes at Kenneth Murphy. Also discussed the gravel parking lot, additional vacancy grant. We went over the details of that and how that could be used. And then we reviewed monthly finance bills, approved the treasurer reports and those bills.
Any questions? Is there any update for CEDAW?
CEDAW did not meet this month. I should say that the governing board did not meet this month. They'll meet in December.
You. Okay, on to building reports. Any questions on building reports? Not? Any questions or comments on the department reports? Questions? Any questions or comments on any of the director reports? You have a question on FOIA. You had a couple of FOIA requests? So when it comes to questions and comments, we do have one from a visitor. And I understand this visitor needs a translator.
Do you guys want to come to the mic and Ms. Julian, our parent community coordinator, can help translate?
We're waiting on her husband. It's coming in right now,
I see.
our partner.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Brigitte Martínez.
Good evening. My name is Bridget Martinez.
Gracias por permitirme ese momento para poder presentarme y referirme hacia ustedes sobre la situación de mis dos hijos.
Thank you for allowing me to be here and present my case on both of my children.
He llegado pues hasta esta situación porque es relevante para mí y para el papá de mis hijos la estabilidad emocional de mis dos niños.
I came today and with the father of my kids it's relevant to my kids and their emotional state.
Por eso estamos insistiendo tanto y nos encontramos acá. Quiero que nos puedan entender un poco.
That is why we're insisting and I hope you can understand me tonight.
Mi hija mayor se llama Emi Ibarra, tiene 11 años, estudia en sexto en la middle school.
My daughter, her name is Amy. She attends the Beach Park Middle School.
Mi hijo tiene 6 años y estudia en la high school Christopher Ibarra.
My son's name is Christopher Ibarra and is placed at Howe, and he's 6 years old.
Llegamos a Estados Unidos hace menos de un año, en noviembre del año pasado.
We came to the U.S. less than a year ago in November of last year.
Yo soy de Venezuela, frontera con Colombia.
I'm from Venezuela.
Para poder llegar hasta este país nos costó más de 2 años.
In order to come to this country, it cost us more than 2 years to get here.
Cuando llegamos acá al estado de Illinois, llegamos a la casa de la tía de mis hijos.
When we came to Illinois, we got to the aunt of my children.
Que vive en Zion, el 904 Country Wood, que le pertenece a este distrito.
The house is located in Zion, which the address does pertain to Beach Park District.
El padre de mis hijos y yo en esos momentos nos encontramos separados, pero compartimos custodia, crianza compartida.
Myself and the father of my children, we are separated, but we do share custody.
Porque como les expliqué antes, para nosotros es relevante la crianza y la formación de nuestros hijos.
Like how I explained earlier, it's relevant to my children's and how they're growing up.
Durante los primeros meses viví en la casa de la tía de mis hijos y mis hijos comenzaron a estudiar los dos en la high school, que fue preescolar y 5º grado.
Both of my kids, when we got here, both of my kids started at house school.
Luego, después de unos meses, logré conseguir un sitio de residencia para mí, mis 2 hijos y mi mamá.
After a few months, I was able to obtain another place for myself, my mother, and my 2 kids.
En Zion, en la 31 Street.
In Zion, which is on 31st Street.
Pero mis hijos aún viven con su papá y también viven conmigo. Compartimos la crianza. Hay días que se quedan con su papá en 904 de Zion y días que se quedan conmigo.
Like stated, the father of my kids and I both share custody. Sometimes the kids stay with their dad, and others days they stay with me in Zion.
Es aquí donde ya pues, nos encontramos como en esta situación complicada. Hace más de un mes recibimos una carta del distrito de Beach Park
That is why we find ourselves here in this situation. About a month ago, we received a letter from Beach Park School District,
donde nos decía que nuestros hijos no podían seguir continuando en este distrito por una investigación que se había realizado y verificaban que pues mis hijos vivían conmigo en esta dirección nueva.
where it says that my kids can no longer attend the Beach Park School District because there was an investigation that was done stating that my children do now live in the Beach Park School District.
Nos dirigimos hacia las oficinas del distrito, tuvimos una reunión con la directora del distrito que muy amablemente nos recibió.
We then had a meeting with Dr. Wilkes, who welcomed us.
Y explicamos la situación. Mis hijos viven conmigo, también viven con su papá, viven en las dos casas.
We explained to her our situation and we let her know that kids both live with mom and dad in both houses.
Para nosotros es un poco difícil comenzar de cero en este país y por nuestros horarios de trabajo, nuestros hijos siempre van a llegar a mi casa porque está mi mamá, que es su abuela, y es como su babysitter.
Due to the hours of work, the children always come to my house due to the hours that I work. Therefore, because my mom lives at home with me.
Y luego que su padre sale de trabajar, es que los busca en mi casa 4 o 5 de la tarde.
When dad gets out of work around 4 or 5 p.m., he comes and sees the kids at my house.
Su papá, pues, como vive aparte, no tiene quien los reciba o quien los atienda mientras él sale de trabajar. Por eso siempre van a estar en mi casa y siempre van a hacer las tareas en mi casa. Les explico esto porque, pues, en la investigación que se hizo, se dio a entender como desde el momento en que ellos hacen las actividades, las hacen directamente desde mi casa. Y por eso fue, pues, como la solución o la respuesta que me dieron del por qué no podían seguir estudiando en Beach Park.
Since the father of my kids doesn't have a babysitter, that's why he brings them to my house, and therefore my mother could take care of them there, and that's where the kids do their homework.
Pero yo sé que es complicado un poco la situación, pero mis hijos viven con los dos. Insistimos en este momento.
I know it sounds a little complicated, but both kids live with me and the father on separate days. That's why we are insisting today.
Porque lograr que mis hijos se pudieran adaptar a la escuela los primeros meses fue un shock emocional para ellos, principalmente para mi hijo de 6 años.
It has been a struggle for the kids to adapt here at the schools.
Ya que él se sentía un poco discriminado porque no entendía lo que pasaba en la escuela cuando les hablaban o cuando sus compañeros tal vez se reían de él por no entender inglés.
He said that the kids felt discriminated because the 6-year-old said that they didn't necessarily understand him due to the language.
Y realmente en la escuela de High School, la directora, la maestra, que en su momento fue la maestra Miss Torres,
And Miss Torres, which is the kindergarten teacher at the time,
me ayudaron mucho y lograron que el niño lograra entender un poco el proceso por el que estaba pasando.
the teacher helped a lot and helped my son understand what was going on.
De verdad ha sido un poco traumático lograr llegar hasta acá y ellos siendo tan pequeños tener que pasar por todo lo que hemos pasado.
It has been very traumatic coming to this country and them being able to go through everything they've gone through so far.
Y mi hija también al principio le costó muchísimo adaptarse a la escuela. Fueron realmente meses muy difíciles para que ellos pudieran entender todo este cambio que estaba sucediendo en sus vidas.
It cost a lot to my daughter too to adapt to the school, to understand everything that was going on from the change.
Can you pause? Can you pause for 1 minute? So we have a 3-minute time limit on all visitor communication. If you want to just sum up what you're requesting from the board, we'll move forward.
Estoy aquí para pedirles que por favor nos entiendan y nos brinden la oportunidad de que mis 2 hijos terminen sus estudios ahorita en Beach Park, para que me den la oportunidad de poder conseguir una vivienda donde a mí me pertenezca el distrito de Beach Park, a pesar de que su papá viva en un sitio donde le corresponde este distrito.
I'm here asking you today to understand me and hoping that my kids can finish school in Beach Park. I'm looking for a residency here in Beach Park.
Ahorita tienen 15 días en los que no van a la escuela. Quería esperar esta junta.
Right now, it's been 15 days since they haven't gone to school. I've been waiting for this meeting.
Para poder agotar las últimas instancias y poder que ellos continúen en su escuela y que no tengan otra vez un shock emocional nuevamente en sus vidas o poderse adaptar nuevamente a una situación nueva para ellos. Ya están adaptados.
Logan is asking because they've already adapted to the school.
Okay. Thank you so much. This will be discussed in closed session.
She's asking if Dad can say something.
Unfortunately, unless he filled out a separate sheet, we have 3 minutes that they're allowed, and they've had way more than 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to be adjourning to closed session, and then we'll return after that. So do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
Sorry,
Right.
can you, who? Thank you. Nicole Harris?
Aye.
Andrea Osry? Stephen Lindsay?
Aye, for the purpose of discussing matters relating to individual students. Just want to add that for the record.
Kelly Ropers?
Aye.
Ann Fusen? Aye. Marcia White?
Aye.
Andy Luther?
Great. We will adjourn to closed session, and then afterwards we'll open up again to people. management of social media litigation.
Nicole Harris. Kelly Ropers.
Aye.
Andrea Usry. Stephen Lindsay. Marsha White.
Aye.
Andy Luther. Ann Fusen.
Aye.
That passed. Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State of Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board?
Second.
Andy Luther. Ann Fusen.
Aye.
Stephen Lindsay. Andrea Usry. Marsha White.
Aye.
Nicole Harris. Kelly Ropers.
Passed. Do I have a motion for approval of bid for the district office expansion?
So moved.
Second.
Ann Fusen.
Aye.
Stephen Lindsay. Marsha White.
Aye.
Kelly Ropers.
Aye.
Andrea Usry. Nicole Harris. Andy Luther.
Motion passed. Do I have a motion for approval of the Oak Crest temporary parking lot?
Yes. I so.
Second that.
Stephen Lindsay. Ann Fusen.
Aye.
Andy Luther.
Aye.
Andrea Usry. Kelly Ropers.
Aye.
Nicole Harris. Marsha White.
Aye. And here's the hardest one. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Seconds.
Who's on the second?
Me.
All right. Ms. Ropers. Andrea Usry.
Aye.
Stephen Lindsay. Kelly Ropers.
Aye.
Marsha White.
Aye.
Ann Fusen.
Aye.
Nicole Harris. Andy Luther.
Here.
Had to do it.
Okay, we have adjourned the meeting. Thank you, everyone.